So I'm having a chat with Dan of The Feeling. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Good, yeah, not too bad. Thanks so much. So first things first, you have a new single off your latest record. The single's called Love People. What can you tell us about the track?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny, isn't it? We wrote this album in lockdown, and I really didn't want to write an album about what was going on, but I did feel like really inspired by, the kind of bravery and kind of the way people acted during COVID, and I just wanted to do a song that celebrated how brilliant people are, but also how complicated people are and how messy people are, and kind of embracing the nuances and the complexity of like what it is to be, just a person in this world. So yeah, it's got a funny lyric because it kind of says, I love people. People are messed up. People get it wrong. People are fallible, and people fail all the time. But I love them anyway.
Good. And as mentioned, you wrote this record in lockdown. What was it like writing a record in such different circumstances compared to when you've written before?
Well, it felt like our first album, weirdly. Because, when I made our first album, nobody knew who we were or cared about us, and there was very much a kind of sense of us being in a bubble, the five of us, when we made that album in a shed on our own, and this time, we had this opportunity to do the same thing. We kind of all came together soon as the restrictions were lifted enough to get 6 people in one space. We came to my studio here in Hackney, which is basically an old pub, and we just made it, and it really was interesting because it felt very much like the same vibe as our first album, because we were in a bubble again, and the outside world didn't seem to be caring about anything. It was just interesting sense of isolation. I think it kind of led to something. It was it was quite creative.
Yeah, good. And the people of the UK get the chance to see you on the road in October. I bet you can't wait to be performing live again.
It's been a long time. It's been about 6 years since we toured. So, we've done festivals and things like that, and we've been doing a lot of festivals this summer. But there's nothing like a tour. There's nothing like a proper, UK tour. You get to really do some fun things and really put on a proper show, So I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah, and that kicks off in Glasgow on the 18th of October, and that runs all the way through till Bexhill on the 30th. So are there any key dates that you really can't wait to go and play on this tour? I bet all of them are key for you.
Well, they are, It's really fun. I mean, obviously there's the London show, which is always kind of like our homecoming because we're all from around London, and that's when all our family come. But actually that can be a bit of a pain in the ass because all your family are there and you have to kind of look after them, So really kind of like, I think the Glasgow probably because it's the first one and, all the nerves will be, high, and it's been such a long time, so I think the Glasgow is going to be a real blast. I'm looking forward to that. But yeah, and it really, to be fair, there's not that many shows. It's just we're kind of dipping our toe in this world again after so many years of being away.
Yeah, and what was the reason behind taking so much time between the last couple of records? Obviously, I'm sure the pandemic had a big influence, but was there any other reasons behind it?
Well, the main thing was I wrote a musical, and then unsurprisingly, it became a big hit. So I went away and wrote Everybody's Talking About Jamie, which was a musical which opened in Sheffield, but then it went into the West End and ran for 3.5 years, and then started touring the world, and then we made the movie. So as I went off to work on the movie version of the film, which was with Disney, but then ended up going out on Amazon Prime. After the lockdown, it just took up so much time and energy. But what was nice about it was the rest of the band were with me on that journey as well. They all came along and helped, played on the soundtrack and collaborated with me, and so I brought them along on the journey. So we did that. So it's almost like the feeling hasn't stopped. We just kind of put a different hat on and did a bit of musical theatre for a few years.
Yeah, and I'm a big fan of the musical. I'm a big fan of musicals in general, but it's a great musical and it's a great film. So I'm going to touch on it. How did the musical come about?
Well, it was I'd always had this kind of desire to do it, desire to kind of like find new ways of being a songwriter, I suppose. I always wanted to just write pop songs, that's fine. I've always been great for that. But the pop world moves on, you know what I mean? And pop music becomes something else, and it should do, and it evolves. But I'm a traditional songwriter. I like songs with story in them, and I like songs that have like, you know, lots of harmony and lots of changes and middle eights and all that kind of stuff. And that stuff's just not very radio these days, you know. And I thought, well, that's fair enough. But, you know, finding a new home for those songs, theatre seemed like a really obvious thing, especially as I was very much influenced by a lot of great musical theatre. So I'd always wanted to do it, and then I got introduced to a director who'd, you know, me and my mate Tom, who was a writer who'd done a load of TV writing. He'd been working on a show called Threesome for Comedy Central, which he created, and then he was writing for Doctor Who, and I knew him, and we kind of thought this would be great if we did a musical, right? So let's do it. And then we got introduced to a director who basically gave us this story, said, look, I've seen this story, do you want to do it with us? And we were like, yep, absolutely. So it was really simple as that, really. It was just serendipity and being in the right place at the right time.
Good. And let's throw back in time just a little bit, back to kind of around the time that you started. Now, you've had some big singles, ones that I can sing just by hearing the title of it, and you've had UK #1 records and plenty of awards as well. How aware were you that this was going to be a possibility kind of when you started and when you signed to Ireland the first time round?
I suppose I was aware. We didn't know where it was going to go, but we were experienced in that we'd been session players or we'd been behind the scenes, and we'd had, you know, we had a record deal when we were in our teens, but it just kind of fell through because you know, the lead singer at the time got signed, and, you know, we got dropped, and so we then went off and tails between our legs and learned how to play covers, and then did a bit of session work, and then played with other artists as a backing group, and we played on TV shows. You know, we did all kinds of stuff as just working, jobbing musicians, and we were very happy doing that. You know, we were actually, you know, very contented and just practicing our craft as musicians. And then, you know, a few years into that, I started writing again and started, you know, demoing new songs, and the boys heard them and they were like, let's play them. And then the feeling just kind of came together as a kind of, you know, the last thing we did was find the name, you know, which was kind of before that, it was just us just literally jamming and experimenting in pop, you know. And then, you know, then suddenly it was like, oh, we might actually have a record deal here. Oh, we better get a name. Oh, we better kind of, you know, better take this seriously. You know, so it's funny because, you know, like, that's why for me branching out and doing ballet or the other things I've done, like TV themes and all that kind of stuff comes quite natural to me. You know, because we've always just done loads of stuff. You know, the feeling is just one of the things that we've done, you know, and luckily it was very successful, and it still remains kind of a big part of who we are as a band. But we also have all these other things that we've always done. So it's kind of, you know, it's just nice that one of them, as in Jamie, has also become a big hit. So, you know, Just kind of, we're just very lucky. You know, I think if you just keep doing things and keep working and keep trying to better what you do, eventually things kind of do work out for you. You know, fingers crossed, touch wood.
Yeah, definitely. And looking to the future as well now, obviously you've got this tour coming up, you've got other touring things, I'm sure, but what's the plan for kind of 23 and onwards? Are you hoping to be back in the studio and writing again? You're obviously hoping to tour the world again? What's kind of the ideas for next year at the moment?
Next year, I think we'll probably get back in the studio. We probably won't leave it 6 years next time. We'll probably get back a little bit quicker, I think. You know, we had a great experience doing this record, and I think we'll you know, we're going to play it by ear like we always do. You know, I've got another couple of musicals that I'm developing at the moment, so that they'll keep me busy and they'll keep the boys busy as well. You know, they all come along with me on the journeys. And yeah, we just continue playing together, you know, supporting each other, you know, finding something else. Goodness knows what we'll do next. It might be a TV show, or it might be a who knows? Who knows what we'll get up to next?
Yeah, indeed. Well, Dan, it's been a pleasure having a chat with you.
Awesome. Thank you for having me.